I stood at my wedding reception, microphone in hand, about to give my heartfelt speech to 200 guests. My sister Claire suddenly grabbed the microphone from maid of honor Jessica. "I have news too," Claire announced with a radiant smile. "Justin proposed yesterday and we're leaving for Bali tomorrow morning." The room erupted in cheers. My blood froze. Those were my honeymoon tickets, my dream destination. My mother Nancy beamed proudly from the front table. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. But I didn't make a scene. I had other plans. My name is Brittany, and what should have been the happiest day of my 28 years became the beginning of the most devastating betrayal I could ever imagine. Let me take you back to that morning when everything still felt perfect and magical. The October sun streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Episcopal Church in Greenwich, Connecticut. My ivory silk gown with its delicate pearl embroidery and cathedral train felt like a cloud around me. I had dreamed of this moment since childhood, picturing myself walking down the aisle toward my soulmate. David looked magnificent in his charcoal gray tuxedo, his blue eyes sparkling with tears of joy as I approached. The ceremony unfolded flawlessly. David's vows spoke of our shared dreams and unwavering commitment. When he slipped the platinum band onto my finger, I felt complete for the first time in my life. Our kiss sealed not just our marriage, but years of planning, hoping and building toward this perfect moment together. The reception at Riverside Manor was everything I had envisioned. The ballroom glowed with warm amber lighting, while white roses and eucalyptus garlands adorned every table. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across the hardwood dance floor, where David and I shared our first dance to "At Last" by Etta James. 200 of our closest family and friends surrounded us with love and celebration. The dinner service proceeded beautifully. Guests enjoyed herb-crusted salmon with lemon butter sauce, accompanied by roasted autumn vegetables and wild rice pilaf. The 3-tier vanilla cake with raspberry filling stood proudly at the center of the room, topped with fresh peonies that matched my bridal bouquet perfectly. As the evening progressed, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. My college roommate, Jessica, had executed her maid of honor duties, flawlessly ensuring my dress stayed perfect and my champagne glass never emptied. David's best man, his brother Michael, had delivered a hilarious speech about their childhood adventures that had everyone laughing until their sides hurt. Then came time for my speech. I had spent weeks crafting the perfect words to thank everyone who had made our day so special. Jessica handed me the microphone with an encouraging smile, and I stepped toward the center of the room, my heart full of love and appreciation. That's when everything changed. Claire appeared beside me suddenly, her emerald green bridesmaid dress shimmering under the lights. Without warning, she reached out and plucked the microphone from my hands before I could speak a single word. The gesture was so swift and unexpected that I stood there speechless, my mouth already open to begin my carefully rehearsed thanks. "I have an announcement too," Claire declared, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. Every head turned toward her, confusion rippling through the crowd. "Justin proposed to me yesterday evening, and we're leaving for Bali tomorrow morning on our honeymoon." The room exploded into surprised cheers and applause. Guests who had been focused on celebrating David and me suddenly shifted their attention entirely to Claire and her boyfriend Justin, who stood near the bar, looking equally shocked by the announcement. But I knew something they didn't know. Those weren't just any tickets to Bali. Those were my tickets, my honeymoon reservation, my dream destination that I had researched and planned for months. As the congratulations swirled around Claire, I noticed specific details that made my stomach clench with growing dread. She mentioned the Four Seasons Resort at Sayan, the exact hotel I had booked. She described the private villa with infinity pool that I had specifically chosen for its romantic seclusion. She even referenced the sunrise yoga sessions and traditional Balinese cooking classes that I had added to our itinerary. Every single detail matched my meticulous planning perfectly. My eyes found my mother Nancy at the family table, and what I saw there confirmed my worst fears. She wasn't surprised by Claire's announcement at all. Instead, she wore an expression of pure satisfaction, nodding approvingly as relatives rushed to embrace my sister. Nancy's knowing smile told me everything I needed to understand about how this had happened. David squeezed my hand, trying to offer comfort, but he had no idea that we were witnessing the theft of our own honeymoon. The guests continued celebrating Claire's engagement, completely unaware that my sister had just stolen our romantic getaway and announced it as her own. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the microphone back and expose the truth to everyone. I wanted to demand an explanation for how Claire had obtained our private travel information. But something deeper and more calculating took hold of me instead. I smiled graciously and applauded along with everyone else. I hugged Claire when she approached me, whispering congratulations through gritted teeth. I accepted the condolences from guests who assumed David and I would now need to change our honeymoon plans at the last minute. But inside my mind, I was already forming a different kind of plan. If Claire wanted to play games with our family celebration, I would make sure the game had consequences she never saw coming. I would wait until the perfect moment to reveal the truth, when it would cause the maximum impact and ensure that justice was properly served. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and growing determination. I knew that tomorrow morning at the airport, everything would change forever. The morning after my wedding, I woke up in the bridal suite at the Riverside Manor with David still sleeping peacefully beside me. Despite the exhaustion from our long celebration, my mind was razor sharp and focused on one mission, uncovering exactly how Claire had orchestrated her theft of our honeymoon. While David showered, I called the Four Seasons Resort at MY Bali, using the confirmation number I had memorized months earlier. The reservation agent, speaking with a pleasant Indonesian accent, confirmed my worst suspicions. "Mrs. Henderson, your booking has been modified," she explained. "The guest names were changed yesterday to Claire Thompson and Justin Rodriguez. The changes were made using the credit card on file and included several upgrades to the spa packages and dining experiences." My heart pounded as the full scope of the violation became clear. Not only had someone accessed my reservation, but they had also used my credit card to enhance the trip for Claire and Justin. "Who authorized these changes?" I demanded, though I already suspected the answer. The modifications were made by phone using all the correct verification information, including your birth date and the last 4 digits of your card. Everything appeared legitimate. Only 3 people had access to that information: David, myself, and my mother, who had helped me organize the wedding finances and had insisted on keeping copies of all our important documents for safety. After hanging up, I drove straight to my childhood home in Westport, a colonial-style house where I had grown up and where my mother still lived. Nancy was in her kitchen, still wearing her silk pajamas and sipping coffee from her favorite floral china cup, looking far too relaxed for someone whose daughter's honeymoon had just been stolen. "Good morning, sweetheart," she greeted me with artificial warmth. "How are you feeling after yesterday's excitement? Claire is so thrilled about her engagement. Isn't it wonderful timing?" The casual way she mentioned Claire's announcement confirmed what I already knew, but I needed concrete evidence. "Mom, I need to use your phone charger. Mine died and I have some important calls to make about changing our honeymoon plans." Nancy handed me her phone without hesitation, not realizing she was providing me with the evidence I needed. While she busied herself making breakfast, I scrolled through her recent text messages and found a conversation thread with Claire, dating back 3 months. The messages revealed a conspiracy that went far deeper than I had imagined. 3 months ago, Claire had written, "It's not fair that Brittany gets everything first. The engagement, the perfect wedding, the dream honeymoon. What about me? I'm 30 years old and still waiting for my happiness." Nancy had responded, "Don't worry, darling, we'll figure something out. You deserve to have beautiful experiences too." As I continued reading, the planning became more explicit. Claire had complained about feeling overshadowed by my engagement announcement, calling it typical Brittany, always stealing the spotlight. Nancy had reassured her that family means making sacrifices for each other, and that sometimes opportunities need to be redistributed fairly. 2 weeks ago, the messages became specific about their plan. Claire had written, "Justin is finally ready to propose, but we can't afford a proper honeymoon. It kills me that Brittany gets Bali while we'll probably end up at some cheap resort in Florida." Nancy's reply made my blood boil. "Leave that to me. I have all her booking information from when we organized the wedding expenses. What if there was a way to share those resources more equitably?" The final exchange had occurred just 2 days before my wedding. Claire sent, "Are you sure this will work? What if she finds out?" Nancy responded, "It will be perfect timing during your announcement. Everyone will be so excited about your engagement that no one will question the details. By the time she realizes what happened, you'll already be in Bali, and it will be too late to change anything." But the messages revealed something even more disturbing. This wasn't the first time Nancy had manipulated situations to Claire's advantage at my expense. I found references to my college scholarship application being redirected to Claire 4 years earlier. Nancy had contacted the scholarship committee claiming that I had decided to withdraw my application in favor of my sister, who needed the financial assistance more urgently. I had never understood why I was rejected despite having better grades and test scores than the other applicants. There were also messages about my job interview at Morrison Marketing Group 2 years ago. I had been scheduled for a final interview for their junior executive position when they suddenly called to say I was no longer interested in the role. Nancy had contacted them pretending to be me, explaining that I had accepted another position and was withdrawing my application. Claire had gotten the job instead. Even my high school relationship with Marcus, my first love, had been sabotaged. Nancy had told him that I was too focused on my studies to maintain a serious relationship, and that he should respect my academic priorities by giving me space. Marcus had believed her and stopped calling, leaving me heartbroken and confused about why he had suddenly lost interest. Every major disappointment in my life had been orchestrated by my own mother to benefit my sister. But as I continued reading, I discovered that Nancy's motivations weren't entirely selfless. Claire had been manipulating our mother as well, using emotional blackmail and threats to get what she wanted. She had threatened to cut contact with the family if she didn't receive equal treatment and opportunities. She had accused Nancy of playing favorites and loving me more, making our mother feel guilty for any success I achieved. Claire had created a toxic dynamic where Nancy felt she had to steal from me to prove her love for both daughters equally. But instead of addressing Claire's jealousy and entitlement, Nancy had enabled it by victimizing me repeatedly. The worst part was realizing that every time I had confided in Nancy about my disappointments, she had already known exactly why they had happened. She had comforted me while being the architect of my pain. My hands shook as I screenshot the most damaging conversations and forwarded them to my own phone. I now had proof of a pattern of fraud and manipulation spanning years. But I also realized that confronting them directly would likely result in denial and destroyed evidence. I needed a more strategic approach. As I handed Nancy her phone back, I maintained a calm exterior while my mind raced with possibilities. "Thanks, Mom. I should get home to David. We have a lot of planning to do for a replacement honeymoon." Nancy smiled sympathetically. "I'm sorry this worked out so inconveniently, sweetheart, but I'm sure you and David will find something even more wonderful." Her performance was flawless, expressing just the right amount of concern while hiding her complete knowledge of the situation. But now I knew the truth, and I was going to make sure that both she and Claire faced consequences for their years of betrayal and theft. I drove home with a sense of clarity and purpose I had never felt before. The little girl who had always tried to please everyone and avoid family conflict was gone. In her place was a woman who understood that sometimes justice requires fighting back against the people who are supposed to love and protect you. By tomorrow morning, everyone would know exactly what kind of people my mother and sister really were. At 5:30 the next morning, I sat in the parking garage at Bradley International Airport, watching Claire and Justin load their luggage into a taxi from the terminal pickup area. They looked excited and carefree, completely unaware that their stolen vacation was about to become a public disaster. David had wanted to come with me, but I had convinced him to stay home, telling him I needed to handle this situation alone. He still didn't fully understand the scope of what Claire had done, and I wanted to present him with complete evidence rather than drag him into a confrontation that might turn ugly. I followed them into the terminal at a safe distance, wearing dark sunglasses and a baseball cap to avoid being recognized. The international departure area bustled with early morning travelers heading to destinations around the world. Families with children struggled with oversized suitcases, while business travelers moved efficiently through security checkpoints with their compact carry-on bags. Claire wore a flowing white sundress with sandals already dressed for tropical weather despite the October chill in Connecticut. Her long brown hair was perfectly styled in beachy waves, and she carried a designer handbag that I recognized as an expensive birthday gift from our grandmother. Justin looked handsome in khaki pants and a navy polo shirt, pulling 2 large suitcases behind him, while trying to keep up with Claire's excited pace toward the Singapore Airlines check-in counter. I positioned myself near a coffee shop with a clear view of their transaction, pretending to read a newspaper while listening to every word of their conversation with the airline agent. The young male agent, wearing a crisp uniform with a friendly smile, greeted them warmly. "Good morning. May I have your passports and confirmation information?" Claire handed over their documents with obvious excitement. "We're going to Bali for our honeymoon. Well, our engagement moon, technically. We just got engaged 2 days ago." "Congratulations!" The agent responded enthusiastically while typing their information into his computer. But after a few moments, his expression changed to confusion. "I'm showing some irregularities with this reservation. The original booking was made under different names, and there have been multiple modifications in the past 48 hours. My heart began racing as I realized this was my opportunity to learn exactly how extensive the theft had been. Justin looked concerned. "Is there a problem Claire arranged everything through her family's travel agent?" The agent continued reviewing his screen. "It appears the reservation was originally made for Brittany and David Henderson, but the passenger names were changed to your names yesterday afternoon. Additionally, several upgrades have been added to the booking using the original credit card on file." Claire's face flushed slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Yes, those were my sister's tickets originally, but there was a family emergency and she couldn't travel. She generously gave us the reservation as an engagement gift." "I understand," the agent replied. "However, I'm seeing charges for business class upgrades, premium hotel packages, and exclusive excursion bookings that total over $8,000 in additional expenses. These charges were made without authorization from the credit card holder, which presents a significant issue." My stomach dropped as the full scope of the financial theft became clear. Claire hadn't just stolen our basic honeymoon reservation, she'd upgraded everything to the most expensive options available and charged it all to my credit cards. Justin turned to Claire with obvious confusion. $8,000 in upgrades. I thought your sister just gave us her basic reservation. You didn't mention anything about additional charges." For the first time, Claire looked genuinely nervous. "I may have made a few small improvements to make the trip more special for us. It's our engagement celebration after all." "But you used someone else's credit card without permission," Justin said, his voice rising with concern. "That's not legal, Claire. That's fraud." Other passengers in line behind them began to notice the commotion. The agent tried to speak quietly, but the conversation was clearly audible to anyone nearby. "Ma'am, I need to verify these charges with the original cardholder before I can allow you to board," the agent explained professionally. "Do you have contact information for Brittany Henderson?" That was my cue. I stood up from my coffee shop table and walked directly to the check-in counter, removing my sunglasses as I approached. "You can verify with me directly," I announced clearly. "I'm Brittany Henderson, and those are my credit cards that were used without my permission." The color drained from Claire's face as she realized I had been watching the entire exchange. Justin stepped back in shock while other passengers turned to witness the unfolding drama. "Brittany," Claire exclaimed, trying to sound pleased to see me. "What are you doing here? I thought you and David were sleeping in after the wedding." I'm here to report the theft of my honeymoon reservation and the unauthorized use of my credit cards. I replied, calmly addressing the airline agent rather than Claire. I have all the original booking confirmations and documentation to prove ownership. The agent looked relieved to have clarity on the situation. Ma'am, would you like me to contact airport security to handle this matter? Sust. Before I could respond, Claire grabbed my arm desperately. Brittany, please don't make a scene. We can work this out privately. I'll pay you back for everything. You'll pay me back with what money? I asked loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear clearly. You don't have $8,000. You don't even have $800. That's why you stole my honeymoon in the first place. Justin looked mortified as he began to understand the true situation. Claire, please tell me you had permission to use her credit cards. Please tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding. Claire began crying, but I recognized her tears as the manipulative performance she had used to get her way throughout our childhood. I deserve this happiness, she sobbed. I've spent my whole life watching Brittany get everything she wants while I get nothing. The perfect grades, the college scholarships, the great job, the amazing husband. When do I get my turn? You get your turn by earning it, I responded firmly, not by stealing it from other people. The airline agent had quietly called airport security, and 2 uniformed officers approached our group. More passengers gathered to watch the confrontation, and I noticed someone filming with their phone. Ma'am, we understand you're reporting credit card fraud and identity theft. One of the security officers addressed me respectfully. That's correct, I confirmed. This woman used my personal information to modify my travel reservation without permission and charged over $8,000 in upgrades to my credit cards. I have all the documentation to prove ownership of the original booking. As I handed over my identification and credit cards, Claire made one final desperate attempt at manipulation. Mom helped me do this because she thought it was fair. She said you would understand because we're family. That admission of Nancy's involvement, spoken in front of multiple witnesses and someone recording video, was exactly the evidence I needed to pursue legal action against both of them. The security officers began questioning Claire more formally while the airline agent worked to reverse all the unauthorized charges. Justin stood to the side looking devastated as he realized that his engagement celebration had been built on theft and lies. But I wasn't finished yet. As more people gathered to witness the confrontation, I realized this moment would define how my family's betrayal would be remembered and what consequences they would face for their years of manipulation. The real justice was just beginning. Within 20 minutes of the airport confrontation, everything spiraled far beyond what I had anticipated. The passenger who had been filming uploaded the video to social media with the caption, "Sister steals newlyweds' honeymoon at airport check-in." The footage showed Claire's tearful confession about my mother's involvement and her admission that she deserved my honeymoon more than I did. A local news crew happened to be at Bradley International Airport covering flight delays caused by weather in the Northeast. When they heard about the dramatic confrontation happening at the Singapore Airlines counter, they immediately redirected their attention to our story. Reporter Amanda Walsh from Channel 8 News approached me as airport security finished taking statements. "Mrs. Henderson, would you be willing to share your side of this story? Our viewers are fascinated by what happened here this morning." I agreed to the interview knowing that public exposure would prevent Claire and my mother from manipulating the narrative or convincing family members that I was overreacting to a simple misunderstanding. This wasn't just about stolen honeymoon tickets. I explained to the camera, my voice steady despite the emotional turmoil. My sister and mother have been systematically stealing opportunities from me for years. College scholarships, job interviews, even relationships. They finally went too far by committing actual credit card fraud. The news segment aired at noon, and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the video had been shared thousands of times across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Comments poured in from strangers expressing outrage at Claire's entitlement and support for my decision to press charges. But while I felt vindicated by the public response, Claire wasn't finished with her revenge. At 3:15 that afternoon, my phone rang with David's number. When I answered, I could hear the pain and confusion in his voice. "Brittany, I just got a very disturbing call from your sister. She told me some things about you that I need to understand." My stomach clenched with dread. "What did she tell you?" "She said you've been having an affair with Marcus, your old boyfriend from high school. She said that's why you were so secretive about the wedding photography sessions and why you insisted on hiring him even though I suggested other photographers." I felt the ground shift beneath me as I realized Claire's strategy. Unable to escape consequences for the honeymoon theft, she was attempting to destroy my marriage with lies. "David, that's completely untrue. Marcus and I are friends, nothing more. He's a professional photographer who did beautiful work for several couples we know. Claire sent me text messages between you and Marcus. They look pretty intimate, Brittany, and she has photos of you two together during the engagement shoot that seem very cozy." My mind raced as I tried to understand how Claire could have obtained my private messages or compromising photos that didn't exist. "David, whatever she sent you has been taken out of context or manipulated. You know me better than this." "I thought I did," David replied quietly. "But Claire also said this pattern of cheating is why you never had serious relationships before me. She said Marcus broke up with you in high school because you were seeing multiple people." Every word was designed to trigger David's insecurities about my past relationships and make him question everything he thought he knew about my character. Claire had crafted her lies specifically to hurt both of us as deeply as possible. "I'm coming home right now," I told David. "Don't make any decisions based on Claire's lies until we can talk face to face." But when I arrived at our apartment, David's suitcase was already packed by the door. "I need some time to think," he said without making eye contact. "My brother Michael is letting me stay at his place for a few days while I figure out what's true and what isn't." "David, please. Look at me and tell me you really believe I would cheat on you, especially with someone from my past. Look at everything we've built together and ask yourself if that makes any sense." He finally met my eyes, and I could see the war between his heart and his fears. The messages Claire showed me were dated from last month, Brittany, right when we were dealing with wedding stress. And the photos show you laughing and touching Marcus in ways that look intimate. I realized that Claire must have created fake text message screenshots and photographed me during completely innocent moments, then cropped and edited them to appear romantic. During our engagement photo session, Marcus had indeed made me laugh several times, and there had probably been moments when he adjusted my pose or when we looked at photos together on his camera. In the right context, these innocent interactions could be made to look suspicious. "Call Marcus right now," I suggested desperately. "Ask him directly if anything inappropriate happened between us." David shook his head. "Claire said you would try to get him to lie for you. She said you've been manipulating people for years, just like you manipulated your family about the honeymoon situation." The cruelty of Claire's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. She had taken my legitimate grievances about the stolen honeymoon and twisted them to make me appear like the manipulative family member. She had positioned herself as the concerned sister, trying to protect David from my alleged deception. "I'm not asking you to choose sides," David said as he picked up his suitcase. "I'm asking for time to sort through what's real and what isn't. If you're telling the truth, then you shouldn't have any problem with me taking a few days to investigate." After David left, I called Marcus immediately to warn him about Claire's lies. He was appalled by her accusations and offered to speak with David directly, but I knew that Claire had already poisoned that well by claiming we would coordinate our stories. Then I checked my social media accounts and discovered that Claire had been busy there as well. She had posted her own version of the airport incident, claiming that I had publicly humiliated her for accepting what she believed was a generous gift. She portrayed herself as the victim of my jealousy and vindictiveness. "My sister has always struggled with mental health issues," she wrote. "The stress of wedding planning seems to have triggered a breakdown where she's seeing betrayal and conspiracy everywhere. Our family is heartbroken that she chose public revenge over private conversation. The post was carefully crafted to make me appear unstable while positioning Claire as the concerned rational family member. Several relatives had already commented with support for her version of events, expressing worry about my erratic behavior and hoping I would get the help I needed. Nancy had also posted a statement supporting Claire's narrative, describing me as troubled and claiming that the family had been walking on eggshells around my emotional volatility for months. Within hours, the public narrative began shifting. Comments on the original airport video started questioning my motives and wondering if I had overreacted to a family misunderstanding. Some people suggested that I was the real villain for destroying Claire's engagement celebration out of petty jealousy. As I sat alone in my apartment that evening, I realized that Claire's retaliation had been far more effective than my attempt at justice. She had managed to destroy my marriage-turned-extended family against me and create enough doubt about my character to muddy the clear-cut case of theft and fraud. But I wasn't defeated yet. If Claire wanted to play psychological warfare, I would show her that she had underestimated her opponent. I had resources and determination that she couldn't imagine, and I was prepared to use both to uncover the full scope of her manipulations. The real battle was just beginning. The next morning brought even worse news than I could have imagined. My phone rang at 7:30 with a call from Patricia Williams, my financial advisor at First Connecticut Bank. "Brittany, I need to discuss some irregularities we've discovered in your grandmother's trust fund account. When can you come in to review these findings?" An hour later, I sat in Patricia's sterile office staring at computer printouts that showed a devastating pattern of theft spanning back 5 years. My grandmother Helen had established the trust fund when I turned 18, intending for me to receive quarterly distributions for education, housing, and other major life expenses. The account should have contained nearly $200,000 by now. Instead, the balance showed $63,000. These unauthorized withdrawals were made using trustee access. Patricia explained, highlighting dozens of transactions. "Your mother has been systematically transferring money to external accounts in amounts just small enough to avoid triggering automatic fraud alerts." The withdrawals followed a clear pattern. Every few months, Nancy had moved between $3,000 and $5,000 from my trust fund to accounts belonging to Claire. The money had paid for Claire's apartment, rent, her car payments, credit card bills, expensive vacations, and even designer clothing purchases. "Why wasn't I notified about these transactions?" I asked, trying to control my growing rage. "The trustee is legally authorized to make distributions on behalf of the beneficiary," Patricia replied sympathetically. "Your mother provided documentation claiming these transfers were for your benefit, paying your rent and expenses while you lived at home to save money." But I had never lived at home after college. I had been paying my own rent and bills for 7 years, while Nancy stole my inheritance to subsidize Claire's lifestyle. "We can pursue criminal charges for elder financial abuse and trustee fraud," Patricia continued. "The evidence is overwhelming, and the bank will fully cooperate with prosecution." As I absorbed the magnitude of my mother's betrayal, my phone buzzed with another devastating text message. David had sent a single sentence: "I've filed for annulment. My lawyer will contact you about dividing our property." The combination of financial theft and marital destruction felt like a physical blow to my chest. Everything I had built and saved for my future had been systematically destroyed by my own family members. But the worst was yet to come. That afternoon, extended family members began contacting me with their concerns about my concerning behavior. Aunt Susan called to express worry about my mental state after seeing the airport incident on social media. Cousin Jennifer sent a long email describing how shocked and saddened she was by my public attack on Claire's happiness. Uncle Robert, my mother's brother, left a voicemail that particularly stung. "Brittany, your mother is devastated by your accusations. Claire is heartbroken that you would sabotage her engagement over a simple misunderstanding. We're all concerned that you might be having some kind of breakdown. Please consider getting professional help before you damage more relationships." Nancy had been working behind the scenes, contacting relatives with her version of events before they could hear my side. She portrayed me as unstable and vindictive, while positioning herself and Claire as victims of my irrational behavior. The family members who contacted me weren't mean-spirited people. They were genuinely concerned about what appeared to be my sudden transformation into someone who would publicly humiliate her own sister and make wild accusations about conspiracy and theft. Nancy's manipulation was so skillful that even people who had known me my entire life began questioning my character and mental health. By the end of the week, I felt completely isolated. David refused to speak to me directly, communicating only through his lawyer about property division. My family had turned against me almost entirely, with only my father's sister, Aunt Dorothy from California, expressing any support for my position. "I never trusted your mother's motives," Dorothy told me during a phone call. "She's always been jealous of strong, independent women, including your grandmother. I'm not surprised she would sabotage you to benefit Claire." But Dorothy lived 3,000 miles away and had limited influence on our East Coast family dynamics. Meanwhile, Claire's social media presence showed her living her best life. She posted photos from expensive restaurants with Justin, showing off a new engagement ring that cost significantly more than anything Justin could afford on his teacher's salary. She shared images from a spa weekend in Vermont and tagged locations at high-end boutiques where she had been shopping for her dream wedding. Every purchase was likely funded by money stolen from my trust fund. The legal system moved slowly, and criminal charges would take months to develop into actual consequences for Nancy and Claire. In the meantime, they were free to continue spending my stolen inheritance while portraying themselves as victims of my false accusations. I tried to focus on rebuilding my life independently, but the emotional and financial damage felt overwhelming. David's decision to pursue annulment meant that I would lose not only my marriage, but also our shared investments, our planned home purchase, and the financial security we had built together. The isolation was the hardest part. Friends didn't know how to respond to the complex family drama, especially when social media made it appear that I might be the unreasonable party. Professional relationships became awkward when colleagues saw the news coverage and wondered about my stability. Even Marcus, who had been completely supportive, initially became distant after David confronted him with Claire's fabricated evidence. Though Marcus denied any inappropriate relationship, the confrontation clearly made him uncomfortable about maintaining our friendship. 3 weeks after my wedding day, I found myself alone in my apartment. Financially devastated, marriage destroyed, and family relationships severed. The life I had worked so hard to build lay in ruins around me. But as I sat in my living room that Friday evening, surrounded by legal documents and bank statements, something inside me shifted from despair to determination. I realized that hitting rock bottom meant I had nothing left to lose by fighting back with everything I had. If Nancy and Claire thought they had won by destroying my life, they were about to learn that they had only made me more dangerous. I was no longer the people-pleasing daughter who avoided conflict to maintain family harmony. I was a woman with nothing left to lose and every motivation to seek complete justice. Monday morning, I hired private investigator Sarah Rodriguez from Elite Investigative Services in Hartford. Sarah specialized in financial crimes and family fraud cases, and her reputation for uncovering hidden assets and secret relationships made her exactly what I needed. I want to know everything about my sister's finances, her boyfriend's background, and any leverage she might be using to control family members, I told Sarah during our initial meeting. Money doesn't appear from nowhere, and Claire's lifestyle has always exceeded her apparent income. Sarah's investigation began immediately, and within a week she had uncovered information that explained so much about my family's twisted dynamics. The first revelation was that Claire had been systematically documenting and collecting compromising information about relatives for years. Sarah discovered hidden cameras in Claire's apartment that she had used to record private conversations with family members during visits. Claire had also been taking photos of people in vulnerable or embarrassing situations during family gatherings and using these images as psychological leverage. Your sister is running a sophisticated blackmail operation within your own family. Sarah explained as she showed me evidence of Claire's activities. She's not just manipulating your mother, she's controlling multiple family members through fear and shame. The evidence was staggering. Claire had recordings of Nancy discussing her affair with neighbor Robert Martinez, which had been ongoing for 2 years, while Nancy maintained her public image as a devoted widow. Claire had photographs of cousin Amanda stealing prescription medications from her elderly patients at the nursing home where she worked. She possessed documentation of Uncle Tom's tax evasion scheme involving his small construction business. Each family member was trapped in Claire's web of manipulation, forced to support her version of events or risk having their secrets exposed publicly. This explains why everyone turned against you so quickly, Sarah continued. They're not defending Claire because they believe her. They're defending her because they're terrified of what she'll reveal if they don't. But Sarah's most important discovery involved Justin Claire's fiancé. He wasn't the innocent victim I had assumed him to be. Justin Rodriguez was a middle school teacher in Bridgeport who appeared to live modestly on his $42,000 annual salary. However, financial records showed large cash deposits into his personal accounts that couldn't be explained by his legitimate income. Sarah traced these deposits back to their source and discovered that Justin had been embezzling money from student activity funds at his school for over 3 years. He's stolen approximately $35,000 from fundraisers, field trip money, and athletic program funds, Sarah reported. Claire discovered his theft 8 months ago and has been using it to control him ever since. That's why Justin had proposed to Claire despite their obviously dysfunctional relationship. She was blackmailing him with evidence of his embezzlement, threatening to expose his crimes unless he committed to marrying her and maintaining her lifestyle. The stolen honeymoon had been Justin's idea, not Claire's. He needed to demonstrate grand romantic gestures to maintain the illusion that their relationship was genuine, and Claire had provided him with the means to steal my vacation through Nancy's cooperation. Armed with this information, I developed a comprehensive strategy for destroying their entire network of manipulation and fraud. First, I contacted Detective Maria Santos with the Connecticut State Police Financial Crimes Unit. I presented her with evidence of Nancy's trust fund theft, Claire's blackmail scheme, and Justin's embezzlement from his school district. Detective Santos immediately opened criminal investigations into all 3 cases. Next, I reached out to each family member individually, offering them the opportunity to break free from Claire's control by providing evidence against her in exchange for immunity from prosecution for their own secrets. I explained that continuing to protect Claire would only make them accomplices to her crimes. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Uncle Tom provided bank records showing how Claire had demanded monthly payments to keep quiet about his tax issues. Cousin Amanda revealed text messages where Claire had threatened to report her drug theft unless Amanda convinced other relatives to support Claire's version of the honeymoon incident. Even Nancy, faced with overwhelming evidence and the prospect of serious prison time, agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. The most satisfying moment came when I confronted Justin directly at his school. I arrived during his lunch break and requested a private meeting in his classroom. I know about the stolen student funds, I told him without preamble. I know Claire has been blackmailing you, and I know the honeymoon theft was your idea. Justin's face went completely white as he realized his secret was exposed. Claire said you would never find out. She promised this would all blow over if I just went along with her story. Claire lied to you just like she's lied to everyone else, I replied. But you have an opportunity to minimize your consequences by telling the truth about everything. Within 48 hours, Justin had confessed to school administrators about his embezzlement and provided evidence of Claire's blackmail scheme. He also revealed that Claire had been forcing him to propose marriage by threatening to destroy his teaching career if he tried to break up with her. The final piece of my strategy involved hiring attorney William Foster, a prosecutor turned defense lawyer who specialized in complex fraud cases. William helped me file civil lawsuits against Nancy and Claire for theft fraud, emotional distress, and conspiracy to damage my reputation and relationships. We're not just seeking financial recovery, William explained. We're documenting a pattern of criminal behavior that will prevent them from manipulating future victims. But the most powerful weapon in my arsenal turned out to be the truth itself. As evidence of Claire's blackmail network became public through court filings, family members finally understood why they had been manipulated into supporting her lies. The relief was palpable, as relatives realized they no longer had to protect Claire to protect themselves. One by one, they began reaching out to apologize for doubting my accusations and to offer support for my legal cases against Nancy and Claire. Even David began questioning his decision to pursue annulment as the scope of Claire's manipulation became clear. Marcus provided him with the original unedited photos from our engagement session, proving that Claire had cropped and misrepresented innocent moments to create false evidence of infidelity. 3 months after my wedding day, I stood in Detective Santos's office as Claire was arrested on charges of blackmail, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Nancy was arrested simultaneously at her home for elder financial abuse and grand theft. Justin faced separate charges for embezzlement and would likely lose his teaching license permanently. As I watched Claire being led away in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't experienced since my wedding day: complete satisfaction and peace. The little girl who had spent decades being victimized by her own family was gone forever. In her place stood a woman who had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destructive behavior, even from people who are supposed to protect you. Justice wasn't just being served. Justice was being demanded, pursued, and achieved through courage and determination. 6 months later, I sat in Judge Patricia Coleman's courtroom as Claire's sentencing hearing concluded. She received 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay full restitution of $47,000 for the various thefts and fraudulent charges. More importantly, she was required to undergo psychological evaluation and treatment for narcissistic personality disorder. Nancy received 2 years of probation and was ordered to repay the full amount stolen from my trust fund, plus damages totaling $168,000. Her tearful apology in court felt hollow, but the legal consequences were real and permanent. Justin lost his teaching license and received 18 months in prison for embezzling student funds. His arrest had been covered extensively by local news, ensuring that his reputation was destroyed beyond repair. But the real victory wasn't the legal consequences. The real victory was the transformation that had occurred within my family and my own life. Extended family members who had initially supported Claire began reaching out with genuine apologies as they understood the scope of her manipulation. Uncle Tom started attending therapy to address his financial anxiety that had made him vulnerable to blackmail. Cousin Amanda entered a drug treatment program and eventually changed careers to avoid future temptation. Most importantly, the family began communicating openly for the first time in decades. Without Claire's manipulation driving wedges between us, relatives discovered that they genuinely enjoyed each other's company when fear and secrecy weren't poisoning every interaction. The viral airport video had attracted attention from documentary filmmaker Patricia Chen, who was producing a series about family financial abuse. Her documentary, Stolen Trust When Family Steals, featured my story prominently and helped raise awareness about the signs of manipulation and fraud within families. The documentary deal provided significant financial compensation that helped replace what Nancy and Claire had stolen. More importantly, it gave me a platform to help other victims of family financial abuse find resources and support. I used the experience to establish the Henderson Foundation for Family Financial Justice, a nonprofit organization that provides legal assistance and counseling services to people who have been victimized by relatives. The foundation's hotline receives dozens of calls each week from people whose families have stolen inheritances, manipulated finances, or used emotional blackmail to control their lives. My marriage with David required extensive counseling to rebuild trust after Claire's manipulation campaign. David felt tremendous guilt for believing her lies and abandoning me during my most vulnerable time. but we both recognized that Claire's deception had been sophisticated and designed specifically to trigger his insecurities. Working with marriage counselor Dr. Rebecca Stone, we learned to communicate more openly about our fears and insecurities. David's willingness to attend therapy and take responsibility for his mistakes demonstrated genuine commitment to rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of honesty and mutual support. 8 months after our original wedding date, David and I renewed our vows in a small ceremony attended only by people who had consistently supported us through the crisis. We honeymooned in Tuscany, Italy, a destination we chose together to create entirely new memories unconnected to the Bali trip that Claire had corrupted. Marcus, my photographer friend, attended the vow renewal and captured beautiful images of our celebration. His presence symbolized how genuine friendships can survive false accusations and manipulation when people commit to truth and integrity. The most unexpected development was my reconnection with Marcus on a romantic level, after David and I ultimately decided that our marriage couldn't recover from the foundation of doubt that Claire's lies had created. David and I divorced amicably 18 months later, realizing that while we could forgive each other's mistakes, we couldn't recreate the trust and security that had been destroyed. Marcus and I began dating 2 years after my original wedding, building a relationship based on complete honesty about our pasts and our hopes for the future. He had loved me since high school, but had been manipulated by Nancy into believing I wasn't interested in a serious relationship. Our reunion felt like reclaiming something that had been stolen from us decades earlier. Claire served her probation successfully and completed the required psychological treatment. She moved to Arizona after finishing her community service, seeking a fresh start away from the family she had systematically manipulated. We maintain no contact, but I occasionally hear updates through relatives who report that she seems to be building a healthier life based on honest work and genuine relationships. Nancy and I have slowly begun rebuilding a relationship based on clear boundaries and mutual respect. She attended family therapy sessions where she acknowledged the damage caused by her enablement of Claire's behavior and her own jealousy of my independence and success. Our relationship will never return to the innocent trust of my childhood, but it has evolved into something more honest and realistic. Nancy has become an advocate for the Henderson Foundation, sharing her experience as a cautionary tale for other parents who might be tempted to manipulate their children's lives to avoid family conflict. 3 years after that devastating airport confrontation, I stood before a conference of financial advisors and family lawyers, sharing my story as part of a training program about recognizing and preventing family financial abuse. The most important lesson I learned, I told the audience, is that family relationships built on manipulation and fear aren't actually loving relationships at all. True family love means supporting each other's growth and independence, not controlling each other through secrecy and shame. The standing ovation I received reminded me that my experience had transformed from personal trauma into a source of hope and healing for countless other families struggling with similar dynamics. Today I live in a beautiful colonial house in Mystic, Connecticut, with Marcus and our golden retriever named Justice. Our home is filled with laughter, honest communication, and the peace that comes from surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your success rather than trying to steal it. The Henderson Foundation has helped over 200 families recover stolen assets and escape manipulation networks. Our annual conference attracts participants from across the country who share resources, legal strategies, and emotional support for healing from family betrayal. Sometimes people ask if I regret pursuing legal action against Nancy and Claire, or if I wish I had tried to resolve the conflict privately. The answer is always the same: enabling destructive behavior isn't loving or kind. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is force people to face consequences for their actions, creating opportunities for genuine growth and change. Claire's psychological treatment helped her understand that her lifelong jealousy and entitlement had been destructive to everyone around her, including herself. Nancy's consequences forced her to examine her own insecurities and favoritism that had enabled years of family dysfunction. The pain of that experience taught me that authentic relationships require courage to tell the truth and set boundaries even when it's uncomfortable or difficult. The family I have now is smaller but infinitely stronger because it's built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Every morning when I wake up in my peaceful home, I'm grateful for the strength I've found to fight back against people who tried to steal not just my honeymoon, but my entire future. That courage led me to a life more beautiful and fulfilling than anything I could have imagined on my original wedding day. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as the worst betrayals, teaching us who we really are and what we're truly capable of achieving when we refuse to accept less than we deserve. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you find the strength to rebuild your life when everything felt destroyed? I'd love to hear your stories of overcoming family challenges and finding your own path to justice and healing. Thank you for following my journey from heartbreak to hope. Remember that you deserve relationships built on honesty and mutual respect, and never let anyone convince you that family loyalty means accepting abuse or manipulation. If my story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more real-life stories of triumph over adversity, and share with anyone who might benefit from knowing they're not alone in their struggles. Together, we can break cycles of family dysfunction and build stronger, healthier relationships for future generations.